On July 29th, 2025, shortly after 2 p.m., an IMPD officer began following a carjacked vehicle near the intersection of West 16th Street and North Harding Street after running a license plate check. The vehicle entered a nearby apartment complex, and at that point, the IMPD North District officer in fully marked car activated his emergency lights to stop the vehicle. The carjacked vehicle pulled into a parking spot in the apartment complex located at 2100 Emmerich Lane. A total of 4 suspects were in the vehicle, and 1 male passenger immediately ran from the vehicle. At that moment, the officer attempted to take the driver into custody and had him seated on the ground. As this was happening, 2 additional passengers exited the vehicle. One of those passengers walked around to the front of the vehicle and began firing in the direction of the officer. The IMPD officer was struck by gunfire at least 3 times, and the officer returned fire, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. The IMPD officer then rendered aid to himself by applying a tourniquet. At least 2 community members ran to the officer following the shooting to assist. Additional officers responded to the scene. The injured officer was transported by another IMPD officer to an area hospital in stable condition. Officers also rendered aid to the suspect who was shot. A total of 3 suspects were taken into custody. Detectives believe that the shooter is in custody at the hospital. 1 suspect is still outstanding. Detectives located a firearm with an extended magazine in the parking lot of the complex, next to where the suspect who was shot was located. An additional firearm was found in the hallway of a nearby apartment, where 1 suspect was found. The Northwest District officer has been on the department for nearly 4 years. No uninvolved community members were injured during this incident. The Indianapolis-Marion County Forensic Services Agency responded to identify and collect potential forensic evidence. The Marion County Prosecutor's Office responded to the scene to assist in the investigation. The IMPD Critical Incident Response Team came to the scene to conduct the criminal investigation. A separate administrative investigation is being conducted by Internal Affairs. The officer who fired their gun has been placed on administrative leave, as is standard procedure for any officer-involved shooting. The Civilian Majority Use of Force Board will conduct a mandatory hearing for any attempt use of deadly force against a person. This occurs after the conclusion of the criminal process. The Police Officer Support Team responded to provide peer support for officers. The IMPD Chaplain's Office responded to assist with those involved. The IMPD Victims Assistance Unit responded to assist officers and detectives. Anyone with information is asked to call Sergeant Brian Lambert at the Homicide Office by calling 317-327-3475. Alternatively, anyone with information can call Crime Stoppers anonymously at 317-262-TIPS. I'm now going to turn it over to Chief Bailey for comments, and he will be followed by FOP President Rick Snyder.
Today is one of the hardest days that any law enforcement agency can have when one of your officers is shot in the line of duty, doing exactly what we ask them to do every single day: run toward the danger. And it's a stark reminder of the dangers they face every single day doing a job in selfless service of our community. And behind every single one of these badges is a human being who has family, who has friends, colleagues, and a heart for service. The attack that we saw today is a second attack on an IMPD officer in less than a week by a dangerous person, armed with a weapon and the intent to kill. It's unacceptable for it to happen from community member to community member, but when it happens against an officer, a peace officer, whose job it is to protect, our community has to be outraged by that. And these attacks are not just happening here in Indianapolis. Look around this country over the past 2 or 3 weeks at the number of law enforcement officers attacked while doing their job. So, for the individual that's still out, My suggestion to you is that you find the nearest church, pastor, or police station and turn yourself in right now. Our officers are not going to stop until they take you into custody, and you will be held accountable for your actions. I am thankful that our officer is alive today and able to speak with his family and his colleagues who have been rallying around him at the hospital today. I'm thankful that our mayor showed up here today to speak to the officer and the officers here from the Northwest District who go out every day and do their job. Their commander is here. I've had an opportunity to speak to the officer. He was in a lot of pain, disappointed that this happened to him, but even more committed than ever to come back as soon as possible and serve the people of this community. Rick?
Thanks, Chief. Here we are again. This is what we have been warning of and talking about for a long time now, which are the vicious number of attacks that continue to occur, not just on our community, but upon the officers that are serving this community. I know for a fact, talking to folks throughout the neighborhoods, that incidents like this not only anger them, and I think somebody needs to bring voice to what they feel. They're pissed off. They're sick and tired of the violence that's occurring in our community, and they want somebody to say something and do something about it. Folks throughout the neighborhoods know that the women and men of IMPD won't quit. They don't give up. They continue to suit up and show up every single day in spite of the dangers, in spite of the risk, and quite frankly, in spite of a system that's cutting them off at the knees for everything that they're out here doing. They don't quit and they don't give up. And I think that's the salient message, not just to our community, but also to the evil ones who perpetrated this crime of violence here today. And that is what we keep saying throughout this department, which is not today. Evil did not win today. Evil will not win overall. And our officer is alive to tell about it. This officer is a wonderful officer. He is well known and respected by his peers for his solid police work. And he was out there faithfully doing what he's been asked to do, and quite frankly, what he raised his right hand and promised to do for this community. And he was doing it unwaveringly. I feel for his family, who are shocked, scared right now that this could happen. They know it's a possibility, but when it actually occurs, it becomes so much more real. So our officers, our Fraternal Order of Police, we've wrapped our arms around his family, his fellow officers who are trying to process what has occurred here today. But I also want to thank our community. One of the things that the chief said is that, Chief Wally shared, is that this officer also self-applied medical first aid equipment upon himself. So I want to say right now to everyone in our Indianapolis community that's helped put those trauma kits together for us, that's helped assemble those and make those trauma kits possible, I want you to take heart that this officer had critical life-saving equipment upon himself that he was able to apply and to help save his own life. And then he was surrounded by officers who have stellar training and were able to employ that training to load and go and get that officer here for medical care. Finally, I want to say this. I too am grateful that the mayor came and spent time with our officer. I'm also grateful that the mayor got to hear from our officers directly, who shared with the mayor that this is what they are up against every single day out here. They were able to share with the mayor that we do have a war zone that's going on in this city. But what they're also able to make clear is they are the warriors that are prepared to stand the line on behalf of this city. And they implored the mayor to make sure that no matter what, their stellar training does not get reduced in any way. We continue to provide that life-saving equipment for them, and that we all get around them and support them. The final thing is this, that was relayed to the mayor by our officers, is that they are out here fighting a battle that doesn't seem winnable when they keep seeing the same violent offenders time and time again. And they made clear that something has got to change in our city, and they made clear that starts with our criminal justice system. They were able to share that regardless of the criminal histories of these offenders, I'm not even sure what that is, but the mere fact that they thought it was going to be okay and somehow acceptable to violently attack a police officer tells you everything that you need to know. And what they said today is these violent offenders do not fear consequences or accountability in our system. Something has to change. So that's where our community comes in. We need you to rally around, continue to be that voice, and stand with us today on this officer survival to say not today. That's the salient message. Final point, we are averaging an officer shot in this nation that the chief spoke about, an officer shot in the line of duty on average once every 26 hours. We are still averaging an officer dying in the line of duty once every 52 hours. I am so grateful that that isn't the case here today. So continue to stand with our officers, pray for them, to the folks in the community that pray, not just speak it and say that they do, but actually pray. Pray for their safety and pray for this family and pray for full healing and restoration. Thank you.
All right, we'll take some questions.
Do you anticipate a full recovery, or is it?
Well, I mean, it's still too early to be determined about. There's still a lot of testing going on right now. We don't know if he'll be sent home tonight, and then further testing is going to have to happen. But there is some, concerns about where the bullets are and whether they can be removed now or later or if ever. So there's still a lot of testing has to be done, so it's unknown.
What are the ages of your suspects?
We'll put that out in a media release at some time in the near future. There's still a lot of things going on right now. That's still an active scene over there, so we're still trying to confirm all that information. But they're young adults, I can tell you that.
The suspect that was shot, what's their condition?
Critical condition.
They're critical. Was this officer? Why was he? Was this part of a detail, or was this just a standard plate run?
Just doing his job. Looking for carjacked vehicles. In his conversation, the mayor, he talked about how there's been a group of people committing robberies on 38th Street. Commander Lewis, I'm sure, has a robust crime plan every single day that he employs to his officers that direct them into locations to try to prevent and stop crime from happening. And from everything I've been told, that this officer is one of those officers that goes out every day to do his job and to meet his mission.
Was this officer by himself when he was taking these suspects into custody? Were there other officers?
He was by himself at the time. Everything happened really quick. I've watched the body-worn camera footage and the in-car camera footage. I don't think anybody anticipated everything happening as fast as it did.
And would you describe it as an ambush?
Or was it because he was able to do the first aid himself, able to get?
He did not lose consciousness. He was able to communicate on the radio. And I also want to say there's a couple of civilians that walked up to our officer who yelled for help as he's laying there. We'd like to know who you are, and there are ways you can identify yourselves to us. If you would let us know, we'd like to make sure that we honor you for doing the right thing and running toward our officer to provide that aid.
Do you know how these suspects are related?
I don't.
Since
Chief,
you've seen the
message to
body,
officers who are going back on duty tonight after we had an officer shot
Yeah.
and attacked.
Thank you for your courage. You are up against it in a lot of ways. Staffing issues, event after event after event in this city. And you're doing a great job. You're driving down violent crime. This is a tough job. It's a dangerous job. But you come in every single day with the commitment that I appreciate, that you're willing to put yourself between bad things, bad people, and me and my family. And I appreciate you so much. And the community needs to appreciate you, and they need to hear it. Our officers need to hear it from the community of just how much they need support and want our officers to work in their communities.
are there any
We'll take
ongoing
one more.
efforts to track this suspect right now?
Yes,
Is he still out
I
there?
mentioned that in my remarks. Officers, as we speak, are looking for this fourth suspect.
Should people
Should the
be
community
concerned
be on
about
alert?
that? Should people
So,
be concerned?
to my knowledge, there's no threat by this individual to the community. He is on the run. This is the first person to flee from the car, from my understanding. And like I said, turn yourself in, find your pastor, find a church, find a police station, and turn yourself in.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you're just joining us here tonight on 13 News, breaking news tonight in Indianapolis, an IMPD officer shot in the line of duty earlier this afternoon. Multiple suspects now in custody, one still on the run this evening. You heard from IMPD leadership there a moment ago. I want to tell you what we have just learned in the last few minutes here. This started when Metro Police say they confirmed a carjacked vehicle. That one officer was pursuing that vehicle when we understand it pulled into an apartment complex about 2 miles from the hospital. They say there were 4 people inside that vehicle. At one point, one of them got out, turned, fired at officers. That officer returned fire but was hit 3 times, according to Metro Police. That officer was then able to apply a tourniquet to himself, ultimately, according to IMPD leadership, saving his life here. 3 suspects now in custody tonight. We understand the person who shot that officer is in custody at the hospital tonight in critical condition after that officer returned fire. According to Metro Police, all suspects are described as young adults. One person, though, still on the run tonight. Now, as far as that officer is concerned, Chief Bailey telling us he was able to talk to that officer, who he says is a 4-year veteran of this department. He says that officer is in a lot of pain, but good spirits. He was able to communicate with his family and colleagues. We understand Mayor Joe Hogsett was also here to talk to that officer. Chief Bailey, though, was very direct in his point that this is the second time in less than a week Metro Police have been targeted by citizens of this community. Here's what he shared with us just a few moments ago.
The attack that we saw today is a second attack on an IMPD officer in less than a week by a dangerous person armed with a weapon and the intent to kill. It's unacceptable for it to happen from community member to community member, but when it happens against an officer, a peace officer, whose job it is to protect, our community has to be outraged by that.
To the public would probably still.
So as for what's happening right now, we can tell you that officer is undergoing testing. It's not clear yet if that person will be able to be released from the hospital tonight. Chief Bailey also telling us, of course, tonight, every badge, every Metro Police officer is a person at the end of the day who has a family and colleagues to care for as well. He says the community tonight should be outraged, saying that this was, he spoke directly to that suspect who is still on the run, saying, turn yourself in, and officers won't stop until that person is located. We also heard this afternoon from Fraternal Order of Police President Rick Snyder, who started his address by saying, here we go again. He called the city a war zone, but then ended with a positive note saying evil did not win today, and this officer is alive to show that. So new developments this afternoon from Metro Police. Again, an officer shot in the line of duty but in stable condition at Eskenazi Hospital. 3 suspects in custody, 1 still on the run this evening. So Scott and Anne Marie, very early on in the investigation, but certainly more to come in the days to follow.
All right, Sam, reporting live from Eskenazi Hospital. Thank you so much for that very thorough and comprehensive report. You are watching 13 News at 6 o'clock. You're joining us as we have breaking news coverage. And all of this started near 16th Street and Lafayette Road.
And that's where that shooting happened around 2:15 this afternoon. Ella Rhodes continues our team coverage. She's been at the scene talking with neighbors and joins us. So, Ella, what are people saying about what happened today?
That woman that I talked to, she told me that she heard.
Yeah, neighbors have just been telling us that this isn't the first time something like this has happened in their neighborhood, and they're quite honestly just tired of all the violence that they are seeing. Now, this is the apartment complex that Sam mentioned where things went down, and that car that was stolen pulled over into a parking lot here, and the scene was a bit more active earlier today. You can see that some police officers are taking down that yellow tape. So just starting to wrap it up, but it is still an ongoing investigation. And Sam did mention earlier some of those updates that IMPD did provide for us, that someone is still on the run. Now, we are learning more about this scene, and IMPD did tell us that there was also a gun recovered at the scene as well. And something super important to note is that individuals in the community, they went and helped and responded to the officer here, and I wanted you to hear from this neighbor who is just upset about what happened.
No, I just hope that family or whatever happened over there is safe, and this has to stop. This is going on weekly. Like, it's too much crime. It's too much.
And like we said earlier, there is still one person on the run that IMPD says they are not going to give up, and they will find them, and they want that person turned in as soon as possible. Like we said, this is an ongoing investigation. So as we learn more information, we'll be sure to keep you updated. Anne-Marie and Scott.
All right, Ella Rhodes reporting live for us tonight from that apartment complex today on the near northwest side where the shots were fired around 2:15 this afternoon. Thank you. We do want to let you know that we're going to stay on it. We're going to continue to follow this breaking news and bring you updates as soon as we get them. And we're going to do that on a variety of platforms, including WTHR.com, our news app, and here in our news broadcast.